I will be talking about evictions during a global pandemic, COVID-19, and concentrating on the top evictors and the ones who receive the most money from the eviction prevention funds. The second wave is coming, and it's not COVID, it's evictions. So let's talk about it. The COVID-19 timeline. March 13, 2020, Governor Beshear issued a stay-at-home order, shutting the city down over the next 2 weeks. This is where all hell broke loose. 5/8/2020, Governor Beshear issued an eviction moratorium, stopping all evictions till the end of the state of emergency. And also, the Kentucky Supreme Court issued a halt on eviction filings until July the 1st, 2020. The protections that these moratoriums offered merely delayed mass evictions. 5/25/2020, Beshear amended his order to suspend evictions for non-payment of rent, but allowed renters to still be evicted for other violations like the nuisance order. 7/7/2020, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Apartment Association. They filed a lawsuit against Governor Andy Beshear because they wanted to be able to file evictions again. 7/27/2020, the Kentucky Supreme Court allowed courts to resume evictions for non-payment of rent starting August the 1st, 2020. On 8/24/2020, Governor Beshear actually issued a new executive order which required landlords to issue a 30-day notice with the intent to evict for non-payment of rent, which made landlords and tenants have to meet and confer. Basically, you have to come together and figure out a solution. There's all this eviction prevention money. You're saying you're evicting someone for non-payment of rent. Here's some money. You can initiate the payment. The tenant can initiate the payment, but you have to show that you did everything to exhaust all of your resources in order to file this eviction. Beshear has also announced the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Funds, which was $15 million that came from CARE Act money, reimbursing eligible landlords for missed and advanced rent payments to keep tenants healthy at home. So, to this point, Metro government has paid up to $21 million in eviction assistance, $15 million of this being CARES Act money. Based on the data that we received from the Jefferson County Administrative Offices of the courts, there were 1,165 evictions filed from March 1st to September the 30th. There were 438 eviction judgments, but we believe that there were actually more judgments due to illegal evictions and people who self-evict, which is just up and leaving when they get the notice. They just up and move, and we're still looking for them. So let's talk about the top evictors during the COVID, and let's see how much of the COVID relief fund money they received. Broadway Management. They filed 54 evictions, and they got 41 judgments. They received over $97,784 in eviction fund money. So that was like $1,029 per unit. That was 95 units. Second top evictor, All Trade. They evicted 22 families in one day, October the 10th, 2020. They received $70,845 of eviction funds for 64 units, and that was an average of $1,107. But they evicted 22 people in one day. Derby Estates Apartment. They evicted 16 people. They received $44,647 from the eviction prevention funds for 49 units, a total of like $726 per unit. But they received $44,000. Mirage Properties, the number one of the most slumlords in the city, received the most money, $109,667. 439 units, it's like $789 per unit. They evicted 5 people. Since the funds became available, Louisville Metro has paid $7.14 million in rental assistance for like 7,207 units. and that's the average of $900 per unit. So despite the CARES Act covering properties that receive federal subsidiaries, if you don't know what a federal subsidiary is, like Section 8, LMHA still received $48,048 in rental assistance, even though all their units are covered under the CARES Act. Why? Louisville Metro Housing Authority, that's like the city paying the city. They're the top evictors in the city, period. So let's talk about real life situations that have happened during the COVID that I've dealt with personally myself. There's a mother of 4. She had a new baby in April. By May, she was evicted. The landlord said it was non-payment of rent, but he used the nuisance order and the fact that he wouldn't sign a new lease during the COVID to get her evicted. Vista Properties, Kentucky, evicted a 77-year-old disabled Black woman. The eviction was blocked. It was covered under the CDC order. We was able to get the judge to sign off on it. So they actually had possession of that property until December the 31st, January 1, 2020. But 2 weeks after the CDC order was enacted, we had her squared away. Jefferson County Sheriff's Department and Vista Properties came in and removed Miss Battles from her house. She had to be flown from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way to Arizona, where her son resides, in order to find safety because there was nowhere safe to put her and keep her healthy at home. And the most recent case that we just became aware of is the 77-year-old Miss Easley, who is a family of 8. She cares for 4 of her grandchildren, and they're trying to place a newborn now, but she does not have a place to live because she was violently snatched from her home when the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department allowed the property manager to come in, and him and his goons tossed their stuff out of the upstairs windows of their house. So the Sheriff Department has blatantly been disrespecting the CDC moratorium orders, the governor's executive orders, and just doing what they want to do. This owner also received $2,500 from the eviction prevention funds, but they were somehow able to go to the court and get an immediate writ, which was to get an immediate possession of that property, to go in within 24 hours of posting a notice. 24 hours later, that family is homeless now, unhoused and living in a hotel room with 8 people. The rental assistance has been ineffective because there's really nobody regulating it. So you're making it real top heavy for the tenant, making them the ones required to do all the work for the CDC moratorium, for the rental assistance, for the landlord to get paid. But at the same time, by the time the landlord does receive payment, the tenant's already evicted. So the rental assistance is ineffective because you're giving money to landlords for tenants that are no longer occupying the units. So what do we need to do in order to stop this mass eviction? Cancel rent. Just as simple as that. Cancel the rent. Let's start all over in 2021. 2020 came in and knocked everything over. So let's start all over. Cancel the rent. Stop the mass evictions. The landlords have been paid. The mortgage companies have been bailed out. The only people who've not been bailed out is us, the impacted residents, the tenants, the ones who don't have no other option. Housing is essential. It's not essential to the property maintenance companies. It's a business for them. So they got the small business loans. We're still waiting on the second half of our stimulus check. So in conclusion, I have questions. And my questions is, how many of the 438 evictions were covered under the CARES Act? Number 2, why Louisville Metro Housing Authority received $48,048 of eviction prevention funds when all of their properties are covered under the CARES Act? And will there be an audit of the eviction prevention funds to see to it that the monies that were used were for who and what they said it was. Thank you.
Housing is ridiculous. Waiting lists are months to years long. Like, there's nowhere for anyone to go. I want an audit done on Louisville Metro Housing Authority to get a clear understanding of where all the funds are going to. And I feel like as a resident for 10 years and a community member, I have a right to do so. Upon further research, including court data, it was revealed those numbers were way off. 524 households. 524 households were evicted. And of these evictions, how many of these evictions were lease violations? How many of those could have been actually remedied or cured? Even though the filing of evictions were lower, Louisville Metro Housing Authority judgments of evictions increased in year 2017, proving that Louisville Metro Housing Authority were more aggressive in pursuing evictions. So Urban Strategies created a shield of Black employees to protect rich white leadership from optics of being a racist villain, throwing Black people, poor Black people, out on the street. Urban Strategies has done nothing, absolutely nothing for my community, other than act as a smokescreen for our displacement. The closer we got to relocating, the more I noticed, witnessed, and heard stories of more families being evicted, thrown out on the streets. And for pettier reasons, may I add. A boyfriend of hers had her address on his ID. He got caught up in some stuff with the police. And because on his ID, he wasn't on her property or anything, he was just in the neighborhood. Because her address was on his ID, from whatever he had going on, she was evicted for it. And he wasn't on her lease. I know someone that was evicted within a few months after their displacement from them losing their job in Louisville Metro Housing Authority, not actively giving them an appointment and doing the things they need to do for them to be able to get their rent payment adjusted in time enough to pay on time and pay what they, what was by their income. So I think that that's petty. I feel like that's something that could have been remedied. They could have had, instead of evicting her and throwing her on the streets, they could have gave her an appointment in a timely manner. Or once they realized it, got her in and took care of it, and she could still be housed. But she's homeless, sleeping on her sister's couch. So that's petty to me. That wasn't happening years prior, before the relocation. Like, I've never heard of anyone getting evicted because someone has their address on their ID. Like, that was unheard of. So that right there was just like, oh, they're on some bullshit. The grant, this $29 million Housing Choice Initiative, what exactly happened with those funds? And not just some of them, all of them, including the ones that y'all got back from the folks that were evicted. Where is that money? We, the community, demand real, clear-cut answers. Signed, a curious displaced resident.